Hey.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
It's Ellen Lewis.
And Ginni Stein.
And we're here tonight to talk to you about stranded knitting. Who's excited to talk about stranded knitting? Are you excited?
I like stranded knitting.
So, how many of you who are watching have done stranded knitting? Interested in hearing your thoughts about it. Okay, so tell us in the chat if you've done it, what you think, if you struggled with it. I learned stranded knitting when the Cape Facet book came out, 1980 something. I wasn't married yet. My mother bought it for me. So that was, oh, you have it, don't you? No. Okay.
I did have it. I had it when I had the class, but.
Right.
Okay.
In the 80s, right? In the 80s.
Yes, definitely came out in the 80s.
In the 80s, right?
I learned stranded knitting in the 70s.
So when did you actually learn to knit?
When did I learn to knit? Yes. So my first official thing that I actually made of something that could be worn.
Yes.
Was a pair of Argyle socks.
Yes. See, this is the point. I don't need you to tell me how old you were when you learned to knit. What I'm interested in sharing with people is this. Your first project.
Right. My first project was a pair of Argyle socks. And I'll tell you, I mean, I was 13 years old.
13 years old, you're making Argyle socks.
Well, because they were popular. They were one of those things. It was one of those, at least in North Jersey, outside of New York City.
Oh, I think they were popular everywhere.
And this was the early 50s.
And they were like, Terry and I were talking about how when she learned to knit, she was making fuzzy dice for somebody, the little Angora dice.
Oh, yes.
And I remember my mother saying that her sister-in-law had made her brother the tiny Argyle socks to hang on the rearview mirror. They weren't actually socks that you would wear.
Yeah, no, they
were decorative.
I made socks to wear. I mean, this was also kind of like the precursor to white bucks and
right. Pat Boone.
Poodle skirts.
Oh, right.
Pat Boone lived in the town where I grew up.
He did?
He did when he had his show in New York City.
Did you ever see him?
I did.
You did? I was expecting you to say, "Oh no, I never saw him."
We knew where his house was.
Did you stalk him?
So we sort of. When we were all, so this would have been the later 50s because I was driving. I know, and in New Jersey you could drive at 17, as long as you didn't drive into New York City. You had to be 18 to drive in New York City, like you had to be 18 to drink in New York City.
I still feel like you have to be a certain age to drive in New York City, and I'm not there yet.
but yeah, we knew where he lived, and so it was sort of one of those things of when you knew that he was going to be around because the TV show was, being shown in New York City.
Right.
In those days, a lot of TV shows were coming out of New York, out of Rockefeller Center.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a number of people who lived in the town where I grew up because it was right across. It was not 4 miles from the George Washington Bridge, so it was very convenient.
Yeah, that's a kind of a Tony area.
We used to go, huh?
It's kind of a Tony area.
I don't know that you'd call it Tony, but it was convenient. I mean, it had its Tony sections. Obviously, he didn't live in one of the lesser. He
didn't live in the slum.
Well, we didn't have a slum.
See, it was a Tony area.
It wasn't a slum. But at any rate, we used to kind of drive by after school. On the times that I had a car.
Did you like look?
Very often.
Did you look? Ooh, let's see if Pat Boone's around.
Yeah, so anyway.
Was he quite the heartthrob? He was quite the heartthrob.
He was. He was the white bucks guy.
Yeah.
So anyway,
who remembers the
Argyle socks preceded that?
Who remembers? Oh my God! Listen to you guys.
I mean, I'm definitely showing my age with this.
It's okay. I love it. All right. Hey, Polly. Hey, Terry. Nice to see you. Patty, Gwen. Hey, Irina from Fiber Chats, the lovely channel. If you don't follow her, you need to. Hey, Sylvia. Nice to see you. Ronnie. My goodness. Lots and lots of folks here. Okay. So what does Amelia have to say? Tanis Gray class. Okay. So Amelia learned from Tanis Gray. That's pretty recently.
The one that was here, that was what, five years ago?
Oh my gosh, really? It was
Well,
before
it was
COVID, wasn't
it was
it?
pre-COVID. Yeah,
Yeah.
pre-COVID. So
Frightening. Hello, domestic Diva from Greensboro. Hey, Edith, nice to see you. Oh my goodness, Karen, too scary. Oh my gosh. Tennis autocorrected didn't just like your last name. I love it. Oh my gosh, too funny. So, Argyle socks, but that's not really stranded.
no, it's not really stranded. Although you're carrying several yarns, and they were on bobbins.
But you're
and-
not stranding.
But you're
it
not
across
stranding.
the
No,
back.
you're not stranding.
Yeah.
So those don't count as stranded. My first stranded was actually these.
You made those?
Yes.
Wow.
Now these are from more in the
That's some serious wool, Ginny.
that's some serious wool. Actually, yeah.
You know what you would say if you had that in the shop? They would say, "Can I make this out of something else?"
Can I make this out of? Well, you really have to know that. You mean these are probably from about 1970.
Are they Chuck's?
No,
They're yours.
they're mine.
Oh, well. Oh, from the pattern. Look at that. So this is Lopi.
Yes.
I had a Lopi kit. Oh my gosh, I might have had that same one. So yes, their Icelandic sweaters were really big, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
So at any rate, so this was the first thing that I did that was actual stranding.
Yeah.
Knitting. I'm not quite sure when it. I mean, I know I made them when we were living in New Hampshire, so that was sometime probably in the early to mid 70s that I made these, because I know that these got used for shoveling a lot of driveways.
Right. So that was kind of a popular time for these in the 70s. And then I was in college in the 80s, and the Fair Isle sweaters, the preppy, that was the thing. And everybody was making the Fair Isle sweaters. Isn't it interesting how the stranding kind of, the styles of it go full circle? It was funny because when I was interviewing Martin about the Afghan, you'll see that next week, but he said, before the steeking revolution, it became a big thing. And I'm like, isn't steeking like ancient? Which it is, of course.
It is.
But, there's a cycle to knitting techniques.
Yeah, there are cycles that go, like any of the specialized stitches that we do. Like I just did the brioche.
Right.
I mean, brioche has been in and out for the last 20 years.
Or more.
Or more.
Yeah, absolutely. They called it fisherman's rib. Same with entrelac.
Yeah.
It takes the,
Right.
you get that sort of cyclical popularity as people like rediscover it. Yes. So you just taught a class on stranded.
I did.
Yeah.
So, but the stranding, I mean, this was done in the round. Most stranding, Fair Isle is done in the round. That's why you have to steek if you're going to make a cardigan. And for those who don't know, steeking means you cut your fabric. You cut your knitting.
You put steek stitches in so that you can cut them.
And you take scissors and you go like that with your heart in your mouth.
So this was not a class taught in the round?
No. This class was specifically to learn how to, mostly what we spent our time doing is how to manage the floats, because of Martin's Afghan patterns coming out starting in a couple of weeks, actually.
Yeah,
sometime
pretty soon, this month.
Mid-August, the first pattern's coming out. And I did a practice one, and there are a lot of long floats that need to be carried. In the patterns. So that's what we really concentrated on, because carrying the floats on the right side is different than carrying the floats when you're working on the wrong side. And also it depends on whether you're carrying the bottom yarn or the top yarn.
Okay, let's talk about that. So there's two ways to manage your yarn. 2 hands, 2 colors.
2 hands, 2 colors.
1 hand, 2 colors.
Right.
So if you're a left-hand carry, you can, or right-hand carry, you can have 1 color in one hand and 1 color in the other hand, or you can have both colors in your dominant hand.
Right.
Like your right hand.
Yeah.
And it makes a difference. So let's talk about why you might want to do one or the other.
Okay.
I do one hand, one color.
I do one hand, one color.
Why?
Because I'm just not very good at changing these two fingers
Yeah.
around. My granddaughter, on the other hand, she is doing it with both yarns on one on her index finger and one on her middle finger, and she's definitely into Fair Isle. She's been
Right.
doing a lot of Fair Isle, but she actually had a little thing on Instagram of how she carried her yarn. So
I would like to see it. So if you've got one yarn in one hand and one yarn in the other hand, it makes a difference which yarn is in which hand.
it does, because Amelia will remember this, I'm sure, from the tennis Great Lakes, that the yarn that is below down is the dominant yarn.
Is that the yarn in your dominant hand, or is it?
No.
It's the yarn in your left hand.
It's the yarn that you're holding below. It doesn't matter whether it's your right hand or your left hand or your dominant hand, your non-dominant hand. If it is being held below the other yarn, it's going to be the dominant color.
Okay, we have a question that we need to answer here real quick. First, I want to say Polly has that book that you showed, which I love. I think that's great. Phyllis wanted to know, what is stranded versus color work? That is a brilliant question. It's actually the topic of the upcoming newsletter. Color work describes all of the ways that you can use two colors in your knitting. Or more. Yeah, it encompasses intarsia, Fair Isle, stripes, mosaic. Yeah, all that stuff. Stranded is a particular kind of color work where you are working two colors or more in the same row, and you are carrying the color that you're not actually knitting across the back of the fabric. So you make kind of a double layered fabric with the stitches on one side and the strands of whichever yarn you're not carrying along the back side. And Fair Isle is yet a subset of stranded, which has particular rules about how many colors you can use in a row, 2, how many stitches you can have in between, 3, no more than 3.
3 or 4, yeah. Sometimes the usually what they say is no more than an inch. I prefer to stick with the 3.
Yeah.
Because I like the way it goes better. And I mean, I can show you. What did I do with it?
So let's talk about this top and bottom thing. Okay. How do you know which yarn is above and which yarn is below?
Well, it depends on how you're carrying your yarn. If you're going to be carrying it in one hand, probably the one that's going to be on your middle finger is going to be the lower. Right.
Okay.
When I do mine, and I should have, okay. So this is on the knit side.
Right.
Okay. So I'm ready to start knitting, and I do carry my dominant color in my left hand.
Okay. So we have the dominant color is the white here, which is your background color.
No, actually the dominant color is this.
Okay. So the color that you want to show up more.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be the same color as the dominant color throughout the pattern. You don't have to stick with that. I specifically put this together so that people could see when I was doing the class that on this particular thing, because of this little border that's around there, whether people can see it, down at the bottom, the green border, there were little white specks, and I wanted the white specks to show up. So on that row, the white specks, the white was carried as my dominant color.
So you can control it. You can switch
control
it and
which is your dominant color. Right. Yes. So, does that make sense?
About the dominant?
About the dominant.
Okay. So when you're knitting and you have the color, the dominant color for you is you don't choose, you choose which is going to be the dominant color by which one you put in your left hand.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And it doesn't have anything to do with the pattern. It just has to do with whichever one you want to show up more.
Right. In the pattern. In the stitch pattern, in the picture that I've got.
That the set of mittens that you did.
Yes.
That's a beautiful example. Yeah. Do you have those? Not those. Yes.
Those, the fiddlehead. Or do you, oh, you want?
Oh, the others. Did you have
Oh,
those?
no, I
Gave
didn't
those
bring
away?
that. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I didn't. No,
That's all right.
I didn't
Are
bring
these
them.
both the same?
These are both the same. Yeah,
Okay.
these are both the same.
All right. So
uh,
there was one that you had.
Yeah, I did a practice when I was going to do this class. I did a practice and I did 2 mittens. I did 1 mitten holding the multi is the dominant and 1 mitten holding the background color as the
Yes.
dominant. And I mean, there was a marked difference in people.
It was huge.
It was, yeah, it was really very big difference. But I can just show a little bit of that on this. So when I was doing this one, we're going to hold that up. If you look, this has that same little border that I put in the other one, and you can't see the white specks as well because I was carrying the green as the dominant color, you know.
Versus this
Yeah,
one.
so I
Oh,
actually,
yeah. Look at it. It's huge.
right,
Huge
you can
difference.
see that the white barely shows up on that bottom.
Yeah.
there,
Whereas
on
it
that.
shows up a lot.
Whereas I did it the other way around. So, you know, this was all being done as examples for in the class.
All right.
You know,
So the dominant color is the lower color.
the dominant is the color. Down is dominant.
Okay.
Down is dominant. And you can control which one you're going to decide according to your pattern of what do you want to be the dominant, what do you want to have show up, you know?
But you don't want to change it mid-motif.
No, no,
That would be other than good.
You can change in rows, but not
within the motif.
Not within the motif.
Right.
So I did kind of do it on this one to show the difference again. I mean, so this was not the I had the green as the dominant, and up here I had the white.
So
as
you
the
did
dominant.
swap. Oh,
but this was all sort of samples for
Yeah.
the class.
so okay. So let's see. Let's have a look here.
There
So you
is
can see
a bit
that
of a difference.
the green. You see more of the green and
up
a
on
little
the top,
less
you
of
can
the
see
green.
the little white
The
specks.
white, yeah, the white
specks
is more pronounced.
show up better.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So,
Yeah, thank
anyway.
you. Good. Okay, so what do you think is the toughest part about stranding?
Carrying floats.
Okay, I'm going to tell you something though. All right. So you know how you were saying that there are floats across the long section? Well, Martin's done something that is quite unusual, and that is to have both intarsia and ferrule.
Yes, and I will tell you, I tried it.
How do you like it?
I decided I would rather just do the stranding and carry. Because
he recognizes that picking those floats up.
He has this little border of the white, on either side. But I don't mind carrying floats. I'm happy carrying floats, and it was just easier for me to do my floats, and I rather like the way this looks.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's one of those things where it looks as nice on the back as it does on the front.
This is something. I mean, this is an afghan. It's going to be an afghan, so you want the back to be as nice looking as you want, and you also don't want any big loops for fingers or toes or whatever to get caught into the big loops.
Right.
And so again, that's why I do believe that no more than 3 or 4 stitches before you pick up a float. And so
and how do you pick up a float? Do you just lay the yarn on top and work it like you would be weaving in?
Not exactly. But
well, do tell. Is it a secret?
How much is it worth to everybody out there? People just took a class with me.
Yeah, but they don't. You're just going to tell them. You're not showing them, and they don't get a chance to practice with you.
Well, it all depends. It all depends. There are various methods of where you carry. You can bring the yarn around the back of your needles, and then you make your stitch, and you bring the yarn back. Sometimes you're pulling the yarn up. Sometimes you're wrapping it around. It depends on whether it's the right side or the wrong side, and whether it's the bottom yarn that you're carrying or whether it's the top yarn that you're carrying. I really can't explain it. It has to be
right.
I have to show it. I mean, I have.
Well, that's not what this is about. We're not doing a demo.
I have the instructions for it, and that's we spent 2 hours doing that the other day.
It's a big deal, right? It's a big deal.
I think people have to wrap their heads around that it's not the same in each instance. It's 4 different things. It's every, you know, the top yarn on the right side and the bottom yarn on the right side are wrapped differently. The top yarn on the wrong side and the bottom yarn on the wrong side are wrapped differently. So
This is why I don't love it. It's so flippin' fiddly.
no.
All right, here, Amelia says the dominant color reads as on top or in front of the non-dominant color.
Reads as on top or in front of.
She's not asking, she's stating that.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that it is on top.
Is it forward of? Is it pushing the other one somehow? What is it? Why does it work that way?
It tends to be a looser stitch, the dominant color.
And therefore larger.
And therefore larger.
I see.
Yeah. So
is that because it's having to travel longer, like a knit before a pearl?
Maybe. Yeah. So, yeah. I'll have to, Amelia, I'll have to work on that. See
Right.
whether I
Not physically with it. Oh, visually. Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Oh, visually. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
A
Yes, visually.
A
Yes.
stranded blanket would not survive my cat. That would be a great toy. You should make a little stranded hot pad for them to play with, right?
Mm-hmm. Was that Terry that said that?
No, that was Amelia.
Oh, Amelia.
Edith says she agrees with you. She doesn't mind carrying, and having separate balls always seems to make a mess, right? Well, there it is.
Well, I will tell you one thing, that when you are working with 2 balls, I told this to people the other day as they were getting ready to, because and my little practice thing just fell off my needle.
Sorry.
That's okay. That when you're working with 2 balls, whether it's stranded or if you're doing like 2 sleeves, you know, we have a tendency when we knit to the end of a row.
We're going to turn it the same way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We knit and we turn it.
And we turn
and we
it.
knit and we turn it.
Yep. Same way.
And we knit and we turn it.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're twisting your balls. That didn't sound right. You are all female out there, right?
Well,
Women.
Not everyone. Don't go there.
Don't go there. So what I tell everybody is when you get to the end of the row, right, on the right side, turn your yarn this way. When you get to the end of the row on the wrong side, turn your yarn that way. So
you can sort of see it too
you
once
can
the
sort of see
fabric
what you're doing,
grows in your lap.
Yeah. So
okay, so turn your work in opposite directions each row. That's a good tip.
That's a good tip. Right?
Okay.
So that will help keep your balls of yarn from getting twisted.
Okay, so first tip is choose which color you want to be dominant and more pronounced in your work.
In the work.
And hold that either in the lower of your 2 fingers or in your left hand.
Yes, generally it's easier if it's in your left hand.
Okay, so the yarn that is lower,
you're working this way,
is going to be the more dominant color.
Right.
So pick that and place that in your left hand.
Yes.
Okay. Second tip is turn your work backwards and forwards, so you don't get all twisted between the 2 skeins. Let's talk about charts.
Okay.
All right, because I'm a huge fan of charts.
As am I.
The newsletter that came out Monday was all about charts, right? And I know a lot of people hate charts, but it's such a great picture of what you're doing, right? So when you're working Fair Isle, charts are essential.
Yes, charts are essential in Fair Isle. Okay, this is just that little sample thing that we were talking about that I did. And this gives you, your rows across and your stitches across and your rows.
Yes.
So it's
your rows of stitches and your columns.
It's like another a chart that has stitch patterns on it.
Right.
This has a color pattern on it. And sometimes you will find, and I have here
so this one you read, so everybody knows, you probably, maybe you don't know, I don't know. On the right side, you're going to read your chart from right to left.
Right.
And on the wrong side, you're going to read it from left to right.
Right. Now, if
Oh
you
my.
if you have something that has other colors that you're working on, you know, more than, you know, again, I mean, you're not going to have more than 2 colors in a single row, but suppose you have other colors that you're working with, you know, throughout the whole thing, you know. So you will sometimes have a chart that looks like this, that's going to have your colors on there so that you can see where your colors are going to change.
You better hope you have a color printer or some colored pencils.
Or you actually do something like you change what the diagram looks like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that can be done.
Yes.
And it's not like you're, I mean, it's if you're familiar with charts that are for stitches, you know, this is a the,
That's the Baltic glass. No, that's
no, that's the my heart
my
heart
heart
one.
breaks for
Heart
you.
one.
Yeah.
That's the heart one with the cables kind of
Right.
things on it. Those give you the stitch pattern. This just, you know, you can do different kinds of symbols for your different colors if you don't have a color printer.
Do you use highlighter tape?
Yes, highlighter tape with charts I think is essential.
Yep.
I prefer to have my highlighter tape underneath the row that I am working on so that I can see what I'm doing. I know other people tend to put their highlighter tape on top of the row that they're working on.
I put it above the row that I'm
Okay, you
working
put
on.
it above the row. I put it under the row.
Right. I like to have it there because I don't like to see what I don't have to deal with yet. It makes me worry, right? I realized that when I had the highlighter tape below the row that I was working on, I fretted over what was happening on the next row instead of focusing on the row. It's sort of an existential life thing, right?
Okay, you know, we're all different.
There's no right or wrong.
There's no right or wrong.
But you do want to use highlighter tape.
You do want to use highlighter. Yes, you definitely want to use highlighter tape when you are working on charts of any sort. You know, and you know, your article, you know, talking about, you know, people say they're visual people, and yet some people who say they're visual people don't like charts, and I can't imagine not having a chart for a lace pattern, for a cable pattern, because if you think about it, and this is going to be kind of, you know, if you take instructions, row by row instructions, right? Row 1, you work, and you read row 1 from left to right, but you're working row 1 from right to left.
Yeah, it's a brain twister.
Okay? You turn your work, right? If you're working flat, you turn your work, and again, I mean, you're reading row 2, right? From left to right, and you're working row 2 from right to left. But when you turn your work around, it really has been from, you know, you're over the thing that you just worked.
Right.
So you're flipping the stuff. So when you think about it, I mean, your instructions are going from top, row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. Your work is going row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4.
It's backwards.
It's backwards. And when somebody comes in and they, you know, particularly like with lace work in a chart, and they come in and they say to me, I don't know where I went wrong. I've dropped a stitch, right? And if there is no chart, they're working on something with no chart, I have to look at the instructions of the rows, and the wrong side rows, I have to read from right to left instead of from left to right as they
Right.
written. So I find it far more difficult to make any kind of corrections from written instructions than having a beautiful picture.
Okay, so I was talking about this in a flock talk recently, and the point that I made, and I may have said it in the newsletter, I can't remember, but the difference between written instructions and a chart is a written instruction tells you what stitch to make stitch by stitch.
Right.
A chart shows you what fabric you are making. It shows you the right side of the fabric that you are creating. And it's your brain's job then to translate the picture that you see into the stitch you know it needs to be.
Right.
So if you look at that dot, right? If we're looking here at this chart and you see that the squares with the dots in them, that doesn't mean do a purl stitch. It means that's a purl stitch on the right side.
Right.
It means reverse stockinette.
It means reverse stockinette.
So I think a lot of people who don't like charts, they just don't really understand the difference. And they're expecting the chart or something to tell them what stitch to make where. And that's sort of the difference.
Right.
The chart represents an intuitive understanding of your fabric, whereas the written instruction is a stitch by stitch guidance.
It's got it.
It's Google Maps.
It's Google Maps. It's Google Maps. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, definitely the chart gives you the right side picture of what it is you have.
Right.
If you have followed your instructions, you're following the chart, you should be able to match up your fabric to what's on that chart.
Right.
So, but as I said, I like having that picture. I really like having that picture. I would much rather have. I would be perfectly happy to do a whole project with only a chart and some basic information of, this is the yarn that I'm supposed to use and this is what my gauge is supposed to be.
Well, that's interesting because, I do private lessons with Donna, and she was talking about a pattern that she had seen, which is a very traditional, it was actually the one Eveline had done with the shadow intarsia.
Oh, yes.
Right, the shadow stranding that Arnett and Carlos did. Beautiful work. But when you look at the pattern, it's nothing but a chart, and the different sizes are sketched on it. And then the sleeve is over the various sizes of the sleeve is overlaid on that. Now, that's confusing. I get what you're saying, but that definitely.
Yeah, you've got to be able to pick out which, those lines that.
You can't be distracted.
You can't.
I don't even think highlighter tape would help me with that.
You might need highlighter tape here and highlighter tape there and highlighter tape there.
Yes, exactly. That's a good idea, though. Yes, put the highlighter tape on the to block out what you're not doing.
What you're not doing, right?
You're so smart. Another use for highlighter tape. What does Polly have to say? To change colors from pattern, make a Xerox copy or scanned and then cut. Yes, absolutely.
You can color it in. Absolutely.
You can color it in and make it anything you like.
Make it anything you want.
Right. So that's good. So understanding charts. What kind of, we're almost done, but what kind of needles do you like for stranded?
Sharp ones.
Sharp. You like sharp
I like
ones?
sharp needles no matter what.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Even for thick yarn? Oh, wait, you don't use thick yarn.
I don't use thick yarn. Yeah, in fact, I was having a hard time when I was doing the class. Everything I know, Ellen uses that really big, fat, chunky stuff. When she's doing things and showing people
when
how
I
to
demonstrate,
do stuff.
yes.
Yeah, and I thought, I probably ought to go get some heavier yarn instead of using the felted tweed because it's so hard to see the felted tweed that I'm working on a size 5 needle.
Did you?
I brought some stuff that could have been put on a 9.
Wow, that's really chunky, Ginny. My goodness. You're really stepping out there.
But I ended up not having to do it. So that was good.
I can't wait till you meet Irina. Little Miss 6,000 yards and 100 grams.
Well, I'm not sure I'm thrilled, I'm working on that either. But, I'm really happy with yarn that's, I'm okay with a 3 needle, a US 3.
Yeah.
But
mostly,
I'm working on anywhere from a 3 to about an 8 or a 9. But sometimes a 10. Beyond that, and I have done stuff on a 35.
What did you do on a 35?
It was some kind of a loopy shawl thing. It was like working with a broomstick.
Yeah, it's big.
A 35 is like that big around.
No, that's a 50.
Okay, 35 is like that big around, right? And that's a 50. Yeah.
Yes, it's big.
So
it's a lot.
it's it's not my idea of knitting.
No.
So
So the reason that we wanted to talk about stranding is, one, it's very cool, and it's the kind of thing that makes just a beautiful and spectacular pattern. You know, if you've ever seen any of the Marie Wallen designs, those are gorgeous. Alice Starmore, Martin Storey does beautiful color work.
Andrea Mowry is doing a bunch of stranding.
Yeah,
Andrea
she
Mowry
absolutely
is doing all kinds of stranding patterns.
Yeah. And
Mm.
there's a beautiful pattern. If you're thinking about trying stranding and you really are not sure you want to do a motif, it's called Sea Glass. I know that I have featured it several times in various pattern promotions. I think if you look at the video I did on knitting from your stash or using up your odds and ends, Sea Glass was one of those. It's nice because it's 1 1 1 1 1 1,
Mm-hmm.
one stitch of one stitch of the
Yeah,
other, and so your tension is less of an
Right.
issue,
Mhm.
right? And you're not going to screw it up because
Yeah.
it's 1 and 1. Because
Yeah.
sometimes I can't count to 5.
So, but you know,
But this project,
I think you know, anything like this for a starter, you don't have to make an afghan.
you can make a cushion.
You can make a cushion. We did a stranding thing. Was it 2020? We did the one with the soft jack, or 2021.
When Martin came, yes, because it was the love.
It was the
Knitted with Love.
knitted with love
Yeah.
one, and I made the pillows for my
Yes.
great granddaughters.
Yes.
Right. So I
He-
didn't make an afghan.
He was very sweet when he talked about that. He said, because I was talking about this being an heirloom, and he said, I don't want to tell you everything he said, but he did. I mean, he really did talk about personalizing it. And I thought about you doing that with your grandchildren's initials.
Yes, I put there one of the squares that he had designed had the opportunity to put in initials, and so I have my two oldest great granddaughters. One was born in June, the end of June, and then the other one was born at the beginning of September. So they both will. But the older one just turned 5. And so the one in September will be turning 5 as well. So they're the 2 5-year-olds. And it took me a while to get around to doing all of that stuff, but they didn't get them for Christmas. They got them for their 4th birthdays. So I have pictures of them. I was going to bring pictures, but unfortunately they're on my phone and I'm not very good at converting stuff into something that I can print off my printer. Of the pictures.
I'll show
of
you
them.
how to do that
Yeah,
later, because you should be able to print that wirelessly.
But you know, they seem to like them.
I'm sure they love them.
I mean, they have them, and they have them on their beds, and so hopefully they will be heirlooms for them.
Yes, nobody else likes big needles either. So let us know in the chat real quick before we go if you have any questions about stranded knitting. But the point I wanted to make is that this is a big deal knit along that Rowan is doing. I mean, Martin has designed this whole afghan with I don't know,
I think
12 or 18
patterns. I think it's
eight different motifs that you can do. And they're doing it from Rowan Connect. There is no fee to do it. We have the kits. And it's just a beautiful heirloom thing to do. And it's a great skill. You know, I think this would be really
fun.
It is
It's
fun.
So,
This actually would be fun because the patterns are symmetrical.
yes.
It wouldn't be so hard. It's a gorgeous fabric. Isn't that pretty?
Yeah.
Did you steam block this?
No, I spritzed it. I don't
spritzed
have
it?
a steamer, so I just pinned it on my board and spritzed it.
Really nice. So I think this would be a lovely, I mean, it's such an heirloom piece, and you could just knit a little bit of it all year long. Maybe don't have it for this Christmas, have it for next Christmas. Do one a month.
I think, that only took me an afternoon.
Okay. It would take me a weekend, but took Ginny an afternoon. So,
I think there's just 6 different patterns, right, on it.
Yeah.
I think there's 6
it's not a
different
secret.
patterns.
He's shown it. It's on the website.
It's on the website. You can see the pictures.
Yeah.
But he's going to be releasing the graphs, the charts.
One at a time.
On a weekly basis.
Right.
Starting on the 17th, I think, of August. It's a Thursday.
You have to sign up. So go to rowanconnect.net and sign up for it. There's also a link to the the kits in the description here. It might say that they're sold out. If you actually want one, I have all the yarn. It's just not in there
It's not
kitted
in the
properly.
kits.
If you want one and it says that it's sold out, click us on Shopify on the inbox, and we will
Yeah,
we will
because
get with
there's
you.
2 kits with multicolors, and then there's 2 kits that are just sort of neutrals.
Right. One is kind of a burgundy and a soft gray, and one of them is 2 tones of gray. One of them is this kind of green and a burgundy and a gold, and it's
Yeah,
very traditional.
Yeah, this one is actually supposed to be not made with the green. This is, but it was this particular pattern he recommends making with, I think it was cinnamon, which is kind of a orangey,
orangey,
red orange.
Very pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a blue in
Yes.
there that he's used. Anyway, you can see it, and he's going to be on the podcast next week.
Mhm.
So I'm very excited. He's so charming and sweet, and it was just a lot of fun to talk to him. So
I personally would make just about anything at Martin Storey Design, and I have made several.
You like him that much?
I do. That's
do
the
too.
vest I made for my husband. That's here.
Yes.
That's a Martin Storey pattern.
He has a certain style.
He does classics.
Yes, he does.
And that's my dish. That's
your
classics.
jam. I mean, I think most of our viewers feel the same way.
Yeah.
I think most of the women or men that shop at Crazy for You want to knit something timeless, right? I mean, nobody wants to spend 6 months, and sometimes it might take 6 months to finish a sweater. I mean, if you aren't working on it, whatever, depending on what's on your life, to have it be out in a year, that would be devastating. Right. We want things that are timeless, that we can wear for forever.
Right.
Right. That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't look frumpy or dowdy. It's quite sparkly and nice.
And it's 10 years old.
Yes. Right, exactly. So timeless, beautiful things. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those timeless, beautiful things. And this is a great way to learn it, because if you then wanted to take that skill and put it into a sweater.
Put it into a sweater, yes.
Or something else.
I think, learning on a small piece, there's the sense of accomplishment.
Absolutely.
That, okay, I mastered this. I can do this. And then if you master this, doing both sides, then you go to a sweater and you only have to do the outside. Whoa! What a cinch.
But you would have to do both sides if you were making a cardigan.
Unless you steeked it.
You would have to do both sides if you were making a cardigan.
Not if you're going to steek it.
Not if you're going to steek it. But if you're not going to steek it.
If you're not
going to steek it, you'd have to make both sides.
Most Fair Isle cardigans are written for steeking.
No steeking.
No steeking?
No steeking for me. No steeking. So, all right, Donna, who wants it unique, yes. But that's okay. That would be classically you. And, that would be something that you would like for your whole life,
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's completely good. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So if you're interested, get the kit, sign up at rowanconnect.net. And I wanted to tell you guys that next week, at the same time, I will be presenting the interview that I did with Martin Storey. I will be out of town, but the show will hit at the exact same time. And I think I mentioned that it is not live. I just don't want anybody to feel like I'm pretending that it's live when it's not. Okay, I just want you to know that it's recorded, and I would love to have you watch it live and make any comments that you want. I will get back to you. I will answer every single comment, as I always do. But that should be lots of fun, because Martin is just truly the sweetest, kindest, most gentle and genteel person you ever want to meet. Don't you think?
Yes. Well, I mean, I have never met him, but he did do the Zoom call with us when we did the love,
right,
afghan. And he was very accommodating with his time and answering people's questions and chatting with people.
Yeah, he's just very sweet.
Yeah, face it. Most knitters are really nice people.
Heck yeah. I mean, look at this community. Right. I have the best. They're crazy for you people. Are the nicest. Yes. All right. So thank you for being here and for sharing your knowledge.
Well, thank you. I got it. Everybody knows, but this is my favorite place to be if I'm not home, right? Or with my family, because this is another family for me. And I am often here, even on the days I'm not working, hanging out with Mary, spending some time with Mary and or Ellen. So this is my second home in St. Mary's County.
I love that.
So,
We love having you.
yeah,
Thank you.
you.
All right. So we will see you guys next time. And until then, keep knitting and create something beautiful. Bye.
Bye.